After 2 videos on the topic, I'm still getting questions on getting started with Assetto Corsa. Fair enough, so let's have another go at this topic. This one took me longer than expected. Some random bugs occurred, which I'll drop on the end here with a timestamp below. I guess the first thing to do is to check that your controller, in this example a wheel and pedals, is correctly connected to your computer. And do all of this before you launch the game. Launching a wheel's control panel software while a game is already running can mess with things, so don't do that. In my case with Thrustmaster products, and it should be the same for all types I guess, the software is added to the apps list in Windows. For each device, a control panel, firmware updater, and application updater is included. Incidentally, if any of these types of apps misbehave, try running them in administrator mode. I have pinned these to the Windows 10 Start menu for easy access since I use them quite frequently. We'll open the control panel and check that our wheel and pedals are connected and operating correctly. Note the rotation value of the wheel. In this case, the maximum for this wheel of 1080 degrees. All 3 pedals are working, as is the wheel. And if we check our shifter, if you also have one of these, it's working correctly too. The Windows control panel has a dedicated devices and printers section. You can't access it from Windows 10 search for some reason, so you need to search for control panel and using, for example, the large icons view type, open devices and printers. And you'll see the properties of your hardware here. These include the device icons, but these are not the control panels for the devices, only their hardware properties. I just thought I'd point it out. To keep things simple, we'll be running the stock version of Assetto Corsa, so no mods or content manager installed. And we'll clear the local preferences data for Assetto Corsa from the folder it adds to your My Documents directory. The controller profiles we'll be creating in this tutorial are stored in the CFG folder here. So if you spend time customizing them, maybe back up this folder should you need to change something later on your PC. We'll launch the game and from Options open the controls. There are some presets available on the left that you can apply over on the right. This list is a bit out of date, but you can maybe use one as a baseline for force feedback settings at a later point if you'd like. We'll ignore these for now. Note that the first option in this list is called Default, which is the starting point when you first start the game, and you can reset to default at any time by applying this preset. And the default starting point in the upper right corner is keyboard and mouse, and to the left of that, an Xbox 360 gamepad. Note that when both of these are selected, the configuration wizard over on the left is grayed out, which many comments appear to refer to. The configuration wizard is meant to configure a wheel and pedals, so it's grayed out if you're using anything else. So it only becomes active when you select Wheel/Custom. You can either configure a wheel using this wizard or add it manually. We'll look at both options. Follow the on-screen instructions to set up a wheel. If the wheel rotation value isn't detected correctly, for example 1080 degrees, we can fix that later. I don't know if it's my PC or pedals, or just me, causing the pedal configurator to act like there are no pedals connected. Take your time here. It's pedal in, button press, pedal out, button press, and so on. And you can always use the back option on the upper left if you need to repeat a step in this process. And once you're done, click Apply. Note here how the pedals are preset as inverted. This is necessary, at least for my pedals, and something we'll also apply when creating a profile manually. And if you plan to drive manually using a shifter, it might help to reduce the range of the clutch to prevent missing gear shifts while driving. We'll now apply the defaults and manually create a profile for this wheel and pedals. Starting in the main control section, we'll assign the wheel and then manually fix the degrees of rotation if not set correctly. You can use your mouse and then keyboard arrows to set an exact value. We'll then assign the throttle, brakes and clutch. And apply the invert option if they appear fully depressed once assigned, and lower the range of the clutch to prevent missed shifts when changing gears. We'll then manually assign the shifting options. And since we're keeping this profile, we'll give it a name and click Save. You can assign some secondary controls as well if you wish. For example, brake bias, traction control and anti-lock braking controls on wheel buttons if you have those. And remember to save your profile anytime you make a change to it. On the topic of wheel rotation, I'm not sure if software lock is included here in Assetto Corsa. Basically, a wheel can have, for example, a maximum rotation of 1080 degrees, but the car you are driving in the real world has a maximum wheel rotation of 540 degrees. So the wheel animation should only rotate 540 degrees, and the game would modify the rotation of the wheel in Windows accordingly as well. R-Factor2 does this, but Assetto Corsa does not appear to. There is a change to a system file you can make, but it doesn't appear to affect anything. In this selection of screens that I have magnified a little, the controller profile on the upper left is set to 360 degrees. In Windows below, it's still 1080 degrees, and the in-game wheel animation on the lower right appears to be unaffected. And again, the in-game controller profile is set to 360 degrees. In Windows, it's now 360 degrees as well, and the in-game wheel animation still appears to be unaffected. So it's not matching the rotation of the physical wheel, which at 360 degrees would be just one full rotation. Now perhaps the addition of Content Manager fixes this. I haven't checked it. With the base game, setting your wheel to its maximum rotation in Windows and adding that same value in the wheel control profile in Assetto Corsa appears to be the safest way to go. If anyone has any thoughts on this, please add them in the comments below. And another peculiarity with Assetto Corsa is the fact that you might connect your controller to a single USB port on your PC and create a single controller profile. Then you start your PC again the next day without changing anything, and the controls you assigned are no longer there, so you have to add them again. The name of the controller device will appear for each axis, but the actual controls themselves are not assigned. This issue might relate to USB power management in Windows, that I'll cover in the last section of the video, but I'm not entirely sure. Since we have configured a separate shifter, and issues with the use of pedals and gears seem to appear often in the comments, we'll start a session with a car we know includes a manual transmission. We'll go to Drive and Practice, and under Select Car, we select All, and under Tags, select Manual. And choose the Mazda Miata at Laguna Seca. We'll customize the Realism settings, making sure that automatic gearbox and automatic clutch are disabled. Before we begin, if we haven't already, we'll customize the HUD or heads-up display. We'll keep essentials but make it smaller. Then from the apps list on the right, add the Tires app and place and resize as necessary. Do the same for pedals and gears. And add the track map option if we need it. And the track description app is nice, as it lists the corner names for tracks if that info is included. Note there are 4 HUD screens available, so on the second we'll add the onboard settings app. Now we start driving, and we can use the clutch and shifter to change gears. Then we'll exit the session, and returning to controls, we'll disable Use Separate Shifter on a controller profile, save the profile, and return to the session with the same manual transmission car. The H-pattern manual shifter no longer works, so we now need to use the sequential paddles on the wheel to shift gears, and we don't need to use the clutch. Now we'll set the Realism to fully automatic, and all we need to do is press the throttle and drive. We can still use the sequential paddles on the wheel to change gear if we want to, but we don't need to. Then we'll re-enable Use Separate Shifter in the controller profile and save it. And again, set the Realism to automatic. And although the H-pattern manual shifter is now active, since everything is set to automatic, we can't use it. And finally, we'll disable all assists except the automatic throttle blip. And we can then drive fully manually again. We'll now take a look at the gamepad controls. The reference to Xbox 360 shows how old this game is, I guess. To start, we'll create a profile based on this controller type. We'll swap the gear up and down controls, since the X button is above the A button on an Xbox controller, or at least this setup makes more sense to me. And then under Advanced, we'll increase the dead zone of the steering to make the car a bit more controllable. It will depend on the controller type you're using, of course. And when we're ready to try this profile, we save it first. We'll keep the disabling of all assists except the automatic throttle blip in the Realism settings. You can use the F1 key on your keyboard to switch to chase cam view if you need to. I've not really played the game using a pad before, but this is quite okay, I think. And finally for this video, the random bugs I experienced. I don't know if it's my PC. An AMD based motherboard where USB port issues are common, or maybe I need to reformat the Windows install. I was at the point where I was going to switch to another PC to continue capturing game footage for this video. The first thing is clicking start from the launcher, and the drive session would crash and drop me back to the launcher. After trying a few more times, eventually the session might actually start. A solution to this, and not a guaranteed fix, is to clear your preferences data folder in My Documents, which is a pain to do if you have settings, controller presets and replays that you want to keep. Then the session would start with this odd camera angle, and I would try all the function short keys I know in order to return to the driving view, but nothing worked until I unplugged the USB hub my wheel is plugged into. I use a USB hub for my setup, and other titles don't have an issue, and often Assetto Corsa functions fine this way. Apologies for the wonky cam. I switched to another USB hub and placed it in one of the USB 3.2 Gen 1 ports at the back of the PC here. And I thought I had it solved, but then the random crashes returned. And when first starting to play the game, watch out for the firewall prompt for acs.exe, which is the main game that starts when you start the session from the launcher. And something someone mentioned in a comment is disabling USB power management in Windows. This may or may not make a difference, but let's look at it anyway. We'll open the Windows control panel, switch to the icons list view, and right-click on Power Options and place it on the desktop. USB power management can be added per Power Options profile, so if you plan to use this option, apply it to all power profiles you plan to use. Click Change Plan Settings and then click Change Advanced. Expand USB settings and change the blue enabled to disabled. Then click Apply and OK. Then right-click on the Windows icon in the Start menu and choose Device Manager and expand the USB Devices section. And for each relevant USB device, the host controller devices you can ignore, right-click and select Properties and go to the Power Management tab and disable Allow the computer to turn off this device to save power and click OK. Okay guys, I hope I've been able to answer some of your questions and maybe helped you figure out a few things. No doubt there's still a few things open or something somebody can figure out somewhere. And let me know in the comments below if there is. If you liked the video, a like would be appreciated. And subscribe to the channel as well if you haven't already. And any comments and questions, of course, are always welcome. Perhaps there's something I've gotten wrong. I'm not sure about the soft lock thing. Maybe you should be able to set your wheel to, let's say, 900 degrees and your game profile to 900 degrees, and that will sort it. If anybody knows more, as I asked, please indicate that in the comments while I experience a wreckfest here on the LA Canyons. So I spent some time in this video, so I hope I've been able to help somebody out. That's my goal here with these videos. And I'm going to have a bit of fun here in the Ferrari GTO. So until next time, thank you. See ya.